Well, there it is. Have a good life. We will see you soon. He said that a couple of times towards the end. A shorter address than we were expecting, but members of his family flanking him. And we heard brief words too from the First Lady, Melania Trump. But let me just whiz through some of the things he said. He talked about an incredible 4 years. He said we have achieved great things. He talked about it not being a regular administration. He then talked about the veterans, how they'd been very badly treated before, how he'd corrected that. I suppose the last of Donald Trump's speeches to be fact-checked, because of course all of those things hugely disputed. But after talking about veterans, he talked about the tax cuts he delivered. He talked about the job numbers that have been doing so well before coronavirus hit. He talked about the greatest economy in the world and talked about how America had been hit, just like so many other countries around the world, from coronavirus, but not acknowledging the nearly 400,000 fatalities there have been in the US, a catastrophic number under his leadership, but then talked about the miracle of developing a vaccine inside 9 months. Talked towards the end about appointing 300 federal judges, 3 Supreme Court justices, and he said it had been my greatest honour to have been your president. I will be back in some form soon, he said. Let us bring in Mary Trump, who was listening to that. And Mary, your snapshot assessment of what you just heard.
Well, he's true to form. He got in his racism. He took credit for not only for Obama's administration and Obama's economy, but he preemptively is taking credit for Joe Biden's administrative accomplishments, which is quite something. He, as you mentioned, didn't even acknowledge the devastation this country has suffered due to his willfully malignant inaction and mismanagement of the coronavirus. I believe that over 400,000 deaths are directly due to him. He took no responsibility for anything. He took credit for things that had nothing to do with him. The fact that he's saying anything about our veterans is disgraceful, because he is not only a 5-time draft dodger, but he has referred to our service members and our veterans as suckers and losers.
Yeah.
So I sincerely hope that this is the last time Donald gets the kind of coverage he just got today. I'm happy to see the back of him. His administration has been one of the greatest tragedies this country has ever suffered through. And I hope we do everything in our power to protect against anything like this from ever happening again.
And we see the President and the First Lady go through the doors as they get on board Air Force One for the last time, that journey down to Florida. Here's a really simple question for you, Mary. Do you think either of them enjoyed the experience?
No, and that's one of the fascinating things, is Donald not only did he never do the job, he never seemed to want to do the job. And I think the fact that he fought so hard to stay in it had absolutely nothing to do with his desire to serve the American people, and everything to do with the fact that he wanted to maintain the powers and protections of the Oval Office so he could continue to avoid the lawsuits and the state level charges and the potential bankruptcies.
I was just keeping half an eye on the pictures from Blair House, because now that final statement we've heard from the President has been done, we go to another part of central Washington, because the President-elect is due to leave Blair House. He's heading to Mass at a cathedral a short distance away before the real inauguration proper. All of those things that have been mapped out take place, and we see just from that tent the curtains draw back, the cars ready themselves. So I don't think we're that far away from Joe Biden actually departing. Mary, you touched on it a couple of times because we haven't seen this sort of thing before on Inauguration Day, which is the outgoing president give some sort of summation of how he thinks the last 4 years have been, because ordinarily the outgoing president very much involved in everything that we're seeing on the screens at the moment, and it is the incoming president that we hear from. Well, as we continue to see those pictures of that motorcade just get underway, let me just try once again with Mary Trump. Just a concluding thought, Mary, as we see Joe Biden's motorcade as he just prepares to head to St. Matthew's Cathedral for Mass ahead of inauguration proper and all the things on Capitol Hill. Your final concluding thoughts, 30 seconds.
It is an enormous relief to have dignity, grace, decency, empathy, and compassion back in the White House, along with competence and a desire to do everything possible to heal this country.
Well, Mary Trump, thank you very much for being with us for the last half an hour or so, both in anticipation of Donald Trump arriving at Andrews and your thoughts after hearing from the outgoing president. He is now on board Air Force One, the rest of the family also just in the last few minutes getting on board. Interesting, it was rather more subdued than perhaps we were led to expect. We know that Donald Trump had wanted a 21-gun salute. He talked about perhaps having a military parade. He talked about hundreds of people gathering there at Andrews Air Force Base. It was interesting because a huge sort of general invitation went out, including to Anthony Scaramucci, just one of the people who received an invitation yesterday. And of course, Scaramucci has been so blistering in his criticisms over the last year or so since leaving. Of course, he served for 11 days there in the White House, but it suggested a rather blanket invitation being circulated. And of course, the Vice President, Mike Pence, not there at Andrews. He will be partaking in those inauguration